A lot of the big, awesome things that I've seen happen here, like, shouldn't have happened here, you know? I mean, in all logic of, like, the size of the town. I mean, even more so back in the day, all that stuff happened because college campuses is, like, where it's at. And, like, kids are partying and you want to go see a band. And, like, that's still there, but it's different. If we were just a town in the middle of the cornfields without a university, not a lot of this stuff would be happening.
This is Champaign is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champaign Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. Today, I have Harsh, and you may know Harsh from the UC Hiphop group, the Broke Rappers Coalition, Chalice Dubs, and also played with DJ Belly. Harsh, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to be listening to your song, The Truth, and without further ado, let's listen to the song.
They pick the scab that bleed, they bleed the past. Sometimes you need to laugh and let the real emotion show. Gonna make it cut and dry and not so close to no grounding supposed. And things are so close, there's no room for elbows. There's more understanding in hell no than maybe so. So tell me straight out, cause I need to know. I don't wanna sugarcoat the tight lips, they sunk ships but never helped them get where they gotta go. So don't hold back, just speak the facts and the truth will be told. The truth will be told. Cause lies are a blindfold and honesty makes my goal. It's 10 times bold. The lies are a blindfold and honesty makes my goal. 10 times bold. What do you see? What do you believe? How easily can you be deceived? What do you need to seem to free? Feeding these sheep through TV. What do you see? What do you believe? How easily can you be deceived? What do you need to seem to free? Feeding these sheep through TV. The truth hurts, the truth hurts, the truth hurts. The truth hurts, the truth hurts, the truth hurts. The truth hurts, the truth hurts. Cause lies are a blindfold and honesty makes my goal. It's 10 times bold. The lies are a blindfold and honesty makes my goal. 10 times bold. The lies are a blindfold, blinding you to the truth. But what is the truth? What is the truth? The truth is in front of you. The truth.
Welcome back. So, Harsh, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the words or was it the music?
That's funny. Yeah, the words, definitely. I actually recorded this track in like 2008. I haven't done a lot of recorded music, you know. A lot of what I do is live over DJs and kind of in the moment, you know. I wrote this as just a poem, you know, a verse. And I took this verse over to a friend's house to record, a producer, Hypnosis. He played this beat and I was like, oh, this will work, I'll read this over it. And yeah, and that's kind of why I chose this track, is because like it was one of those things. And I love when that happens. It's like, hey, I have this beat, I have this verse, okay, let's make it work. This verse, if I just did it as a spoken word, would be way different in presentation than the way it rode over the beat and whatnot.
Yeah,
I love when that happens. That's kind of how it went. And it was one session. I think, it's so long ago. I do feel like I recorded the main verse and then went back and did like the ad-lib stuff, and there's like a little bridge or something. Yeah.
What you see, what you believe.
What do you see, what do you believe? Oh yeah, and that wasn't on the lyrics I sent you because but I forgot that I added that part. That's the verse what I sent you in text is the original verse that I wrote, and then I added those as like another phrase.
Was this just, you had written the verse and then you went over to your friend Hypnosis's house and you recorded it that day? Or?
I probably took a folder of verses. That's kind of how I do it sometimes, and I'm thumbing through things. I don't think I went over there with, hey, I got the one,
Gotcha.
Like it's more like, hey, what will fit? And maybe he tailored the beat a little later, but I think the backbone of the beat was there. The rhythm, and I probably did it, and the cadence worked on it, and I was like, oh, this is good. Good.
How did you work in the hook of the, because lies are a blindfold. So were you just like, you're going along with the beat and you started singing it? Or
that's like, it's the last line of the verse if I did it as like a spoken word. So I just kind of repeated that, and then it just seemed like it kind of needed more, I guess. Like I said, this was a while back too, so it's like thinking about that process is a little, it was cool because like my delivery in it was different. It's like it kind of has like a reggae tinge to it, which I like in my delivery. I do kind of reggae styles and whatnot, and things that I rhyme over, like dubstep and dub reggae and things like that. But I did that later. I mean, I've always been a fan of reggae and kind of comes out in my influences. That was definitely tailoring the delivery to the beat and like how I felt about, because it kind of has like a bouncy rhythm. It's not your normal like boom bap hip hop track,
Right.
It's kind of dancey a little bit.
You end up repeating that, and that's why I kind of referred it as a hook, because it's kind of this, it had that.
If there was a hook on this track, it's the hook, yeah. And I just, I guess you repeat things for emphasis, and it's a cool line, I guess. So
let's just back up, since the word started this. Like, what were you thinking about when you started writing this? Like, was there something particular going on that you were referring to, or was it just like...
That's a good question, too. I've realized when I go back through my writings, and I probably wrote this in 2006 or 7, maybe, a year before. I had already written it when I recorded it. When I look back at old verses, not necessarily recordings, but verses, there's ones that are just thematic and I know why I'm writing it. There's ones like about incident, not as much about incidents, but I always find that like half the time I'm talking to myself and I didn't realize it at the time, I'm like giving myself advice or giving, and like at the time when I wrote it, I'm talking to like the hypothetical person out there, the whack MC or, like something like that, It wasn't like a bunch of people were lying to me and I was like, man, the truth, I don't think it really came from that. I value honesty a lot, Also, like in it, it's talking about not just being honest, but saying things out and I don't want to sugarcoat. Things like that, like tight lips never sunk ships, but never helped them get where they gotta go. Hey, just tell me, don't people can be very overly courteous, Right. And it's like, speak up, like don't be offensive, but if you feel a certain way and if you like want to say something, you should say it. And I think that more than just lying to people, but also just like something's bugging you, say it, You're gonna be better off in the long run because it won't be like festering there,
Yeah. Since this was something that you wrote so long ago, I'm wondering, like, how do you see this song now, since, it's now, almost 15 years old, right?
I mean, it holds up. I like it still. When you ask, like, what's the favorite thing you've recorded, there's some other things that I've recorded that I like. A lot of them are tracks with other people on them, but yeah, I still like this track. How it came together and how it just kind of clicked. I was like really impressed by how it all came together. Like, I love this verse. One of my favorite verses I've written. The way that it changed and fit, and I made it fit, but both of us, the producer and me, kind of making it work. Like, just, I don't know. It's one of those, not a gem, but definitely like oh wow, that one worked.
Yeah. As part of the process of this podcast, it's kind of a study in how do people write music and how do people feel about the music that they write.
Right.
And so, to me, I'm always fascinated by some people, and even the same people will feel different ways about different songs and the process.
Right.
So it's cool that you like this piece because of how quickly it came together, that in some ways, because of its maybe effortlessness, that it felt right. And
I think a lot of times with me too, overthinking stuff, and like I honestly with live shows, with everything, a lot of the times I'm improvising, and I'm kind of improvising, but also going off of like making up things as I go, but also having things that like go-tos. The time that I get the most nervous and I feel like I'm not doing as good is when I have to like memorize something and like cues, all of that. It takes me out of the moment. I feel like, unless I'm so rehearsed that we're on, and like that's okay, but I never really do that. So I like this process better than like, hey, here's a beat, write to it, which I've done, which is cool. But I feel like some of the best stuff that I've done has been like, I showed up somewhere, they played a beat, I wrote to it right there. I have done things where I take a verse and try to fit it onto stuff. And this is a good example of that working. But there's other times when it just feels a little more forced and it feels like it doesn't necessarily fit. I was just talking to my friend Linda the other day and about the process and our process, because we're starting to write music together and perform together. One thing we talked about was bringing like a hook that I've already written before, and pairing that with a song, and then writing the verses like fresh, because you have this foundation of the concept that the hook kind of like sets the, the context or the, kind of what it's about. And so from there you like write fresh. So that, like, bringing in old verses I wrote other times can feel kind of stale and kind of old, and not the best fit, but writing fresh is more like, especially if you're talking with the producer about what we're writing about or whatnot, that in certain cases I like to get input from who I'm collaborating with as far as like the concept and things like that. It's fun to kind of go off of that when you're creating, or even some jokey thing that you say while you're making, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna write this little inside joke, even if it's not the concept of this, you made some joke while you're there, and then work that in as a little like, haha, hey.
I'm curious about the idea of music in itself as a personal, insular thing versus music as a community creative process.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me as if you appreciate the approach of it being a community creative process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rarely, the only thing I do by myself is write. My focus has never been like, hey, I'm going to make this album. I'm going to make all these tracks. I got to get in the studio to finish this. Like, that's never been my focus as a musician. I mean, I want to do that at some point eventually, but so much of what I have done is performing is, live in the moment, in like jumping up and freestyling, or like I would host nights, so DJs would play for 4 hours and I'd be on stage the whole time, kind of like toasting, saying hooks and hyping the crowd stuff. But, communal collaboration, the collaboration of it is really what I enjoy too. It's one thing to sit and write. I mean, I like doing that. I like getting concepts out, and writing about stuff, but also just having those prompts and having those things to bounce off of and like read and adapt. I really enjoy doing that.
It's having that second set of ears or second set of eyes to reevaluate what you've done and give some kind of different direction maybe, or something that you didn't yourself think of, but it then creates more creativity.
Yeah, totally.
In your mind.
Yeah, I mean, bouncing ideas is always good, especially if the person you're bouncing off of, you have a mutual respect of their knowledge and opinions. And when you find the people that collaborate, that you respect their opinion, and it's like this mutual adoration, and you get that bounce back and forth, it's great. When you find those people, you see this too, like people keep them around, or try to. One
of the things that I like to do in this is state what my favorite part of this piece is. The central theme, or the theme that comes through in this, is say it. And I do like the let the real emotion show, gotta make it cut and dry so it's not close to no.
Right, yeah.
One, I like that rhyme, but also people do hem and haw so often where it's just, I want to make the impact less, but in the end it just takes extra time, and maybe somebody wastes time.
Yeah, rip the Band-Aid off, right?
Yeah, just do it. No ground in supposed, and things are so closed. Oh, by the way, I do ruin verses, by the way, by me saying them. So, so I take all the life out of them, for sure.
You put a different life into them.
Yes, no ground in supposed, and things are so closed. There's no room for elbows. There is more understanding in hell no than maybe so.
Right, yeah.
I like the way that verse turns, and then it just... Yeah, the maybe so. Well, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if somebody's like, hey, what do you want to do? Hell no.
Right.
Like, all right, well, I know how you feel about that. It's like, I don't know. I really think what it is people don't want to offend by saying something that possibly could be contrary or could be different from what someone wants to hear, And it's like, well... I guess there are those times, maybe you use discretion, and, maybe the particular times when you don't say hell no to someone in that line, as long as it's not malicious, and as long as you're not being mean when you, say the truth. I mean, the truth hurts, I guess, is the first line, but as long as you're not intentional, it's like, it's better just to be, straightforward with it.
Now the question turns to you. What is your favorite part in this piece?
What is my favorite part? It might be... the line you said, yeah. No ground it's supposed, and things are so closed, there's no room for elbows. I mean, the tight lips never sunk ships, and never helped them get where they gotta go. I like taking old phrases and kind of playing on those, The rhyme scheme, and I think that's the beauty of that part of it, and kind of what I do when I write verse and not freestyle verse, is that this wordplay of syllables, but also getting the content to fit in there, and that's just this little puzzle of like,
right,
all right, here's these words that rhyme with each other, but also I gotta say something, and not just say something that everybody's heard before, like say something a bit poignant, or make a say it straight out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you especially with verses and a rhyme scheme, there's an economy of syllables, right? Like you can only say so many.
People do just the end of line rhyme, and this is close to no, ground and supposed, it's like staggered rhyming and inner line rhyming, multi-syllabic. I think anytime I can get a good rhythm of rhyme words and like saying something pretty cool, that's the point, right? That's the goal.
Why was this the song that you picked for the song that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, one, it's probably my favorite song that is just me. A lot of songs I've done, collaboration, is, during Broke Rappers Coalition is what we kind of called this group of hip-hop artists in like the late aughts in Champaign-Urbana. So there was a couple of tracks I did with like Crooked and Cornbread. It'd be like, hey, we're doing this track, we have this beat, you want to get on it, you want to jump on, write a verse. Yeah, sure. I have some spoken word stuff, and I have some stuff from like 2004 that I did recorded solo, but like that one's the best like standout one of just me. Not that I didn't want to like have somebody else's music on the podcast, but it seemed fitting to do a track that was just me on it. Yeah.
Even in the midst of the current coronavirus pandemic, the Jubilee Cafe is continuing to serve packaged, home-cooked meals free to all every Monday evening, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Meals are available for pickup outside the 6th Street door to the Community United Church of Christ in Champaign, Illinois, 805 South 6th Street. Jubilee Cafe's mission remains the same. Feed hungry people by cooking healthy and delicious meals. We are open to anyone who cares to receive a meal. For information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email us at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Harsh, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I'd say Cowboy Monkey.
Yeah.
I mean, I love High Dive. I've seen a lot of great shows there. And Canopy really was where I kind of started throwing shows. You know, it has a special place in a home too. But like, I don't know, Cowboy Monkey was great. It was small. You could pack it out. We had a lot of great shows there. I saw a lot of great shows there. You know, there's something really valuable about seeing good talent, period, but touring acts in small venues like that. You can't beat that.
I'm wondering if, since that was the original location of the Blind Pig, like whether that setup just kind of lent that place to be a little good more venue, like it had. Yeah, maybe it had a little mojo left in it, or like, you know, a good foundation of mojo from the Pig. I mean, that was kind of before my time. My dad took me to the Blind Pig a couple times to see like blues artists or like, you know, some band. Kind of snuck me in and I sat in the corner and, you know, it was early in the night, whatnot. I know people that worked there and I know people that played there. So, you know, always with a space like that, it's like, okay, well, this has worked before. It's not as risky to be like, oh, is this going to work again? I mean, I think live music in Champaign-Urbana has, you know, changed in popularity or whatever, you know, things fluctuate. Think of all the bands that played at the Blind Pig. There's like so many awesome bands that played there in the 90s. It still blows my mind that there was, in the 90s, that was there, and then late 90s, there was nothing there. There was the Brass Rail, there was Esquire, there was Jupiter's.
Yeah.
And then I think High Dive crept in, and then
there was where Mike and Molly's was Gypsy for a little while, which was before my time too. I never went there when it was open. I will mention that venue-wise, the best thing ever in Champaign-Urbana was Orchid. For me, it was because I'm into hip-hop and DJ culture, you know, DJ house music and drum and bass. And, you know, there was a really thriving DJ scene at that time. Like people were throwing raves all over the place in Champaign-Urbana. I always say it was very much like Hackers. Like the computer science kids come from all over and they're ravers, and then they're like, we're gonna throw these parties, and like they threw crazy parties. So Orchid was just like, it was a Chicago club on campus in Champaign with like touring DJs. It was crazy. When I think about it now, like, and tell people about it, it's like, what?
I must have had a slight overlap there, because I was visiting in like 97, 98.
It opened on a New Year's Eve, because the flyer for the first one at Big Wheel was where I saw it. It looked like a rave flyer, and I was like, what? You know, and there'd be rave flyers in Big Wheel all the time, you know, for Chicago or for here. And so it looked like another rave flyer. Like, what? Oh, what's Orchid? You know, people would name parties like that too. You know? Like Orchid or Sunblast or whatever, Sunburst, or, you know, be like, oh, is this a party? And then it was a club, and that was exciting. And yeah, I want to say that was 98, 99.
I had totally forgotten about Orchid. Like, it, you know, I'd been in there a few times, and I remember it just being like, I don't know if saying over the top is the right thing, but it was just like, it like leaned into everything.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, there was no
subtlety.
No subtlety to it, but it was just like, it was what it was.
Right.
It did not sugarcoat it.
I think they just wanted to occupy that space of the scene, you know? They wanted to be a club.
Yeah.
They wanted to bring a Chicago, I mean, whatever, not just Chicago, but like a city club there, you know. Maybe not the most elegant. You're still on a college campus.
Yeah. No, I know, right? That's always... Yeah. I mean, as long as you can keep the stale beer smell out of things, then you're doing all right, I think, as a campus bar. You've had a long history of being a DJ, but also you've gotten into... You're doing like projection art during music performances, or just at the same time?
Yeah, a little of both. So I've been doing things where bands reach out to me to do visuals for a show that's not necessarily a show that I'm producing. But then also we're producing shows where we're booking the lineup, and it's like immersive projections, but we're booking the lineup of, you know, different lineup. We kind of have a formula of like classical musicians kind of opening the night, and then like live, kind of more experimental or live band in the middle, and then DJs after that. So it's kind of a variety show.
It's an audio visual event.
Right, yeah. With it coming. And then we've also trying to work into that, having visual guests where either somebody that does like illustration or graphic design, or maybe not graphic design, but graphic art, we're either utilizing their artwork in our projections, or other people that do visual art, VJing, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Visual art. Other people that mix video and do live effects, you know? Like Jake Metz was just on the last one, and he uses like an analog video synth and really cool textures and live cameras and sound reactivity in the visuals. So it kind of connects it. So you're seeing what's there and reacting to the music and whatnot.
How did you get into this project?
So I've been doing projections for, since Broke Rappers time, I guess. Like, I bought a projector in like 2006, maybe. Started just doing projection for bands, you know, or at parties. Yeah, just got some software from a friend, cracked software.
Yeah.
Started playing around with that. And then there was a band called Christoph's Agenda. I used to do stuff for... Actually, High Dive, I did this show series called Chillax, because it was a down-tempo trip-hop and that kind of down-tempo vibe. There just wasn't a space for that kind of music in town, and we do it on Sundays at the High Dive when it's slow, and we pull the couches out and let people study and be on the couches and hang out, and then we would book DJs and producers, and they would all play in like a very like chill in that realm. But it also gave a really opportunity for bands that did that style, you know, where you would be the opener all the time if you were a chiller band, or maybe you wouldn't get booked because it's Saturday night and we want to party, you know, and play loud music, and like those bands kind of like don't have the space for it. Then I would do projections for those bands, so they would come at like once a month. I think I did mostly DJs and producers on most of the lineups, and then once a month or once every other week I would have a featured band, and I would do like a small video installation behind them.
Cool.
And that was kind of the beginning of me kind of being like, oh, this is cool, I could do this, you know.
Yeah. Reds
was a cool band that played, Mordecai and the Mirror. And then I also did a show, not to just talk about all the shows I've done, but
yeah, no, please.
Upstairs at Mike and Molly's was a really cool space to do projections, because it's like a dark box, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a window to the outside, but you could easily cover that up, or not that much ambient light gets in. So I did another show series kind of in that same idea of like, hey, there's these cool bands making more chill, like synthy, more not hard rock and roll, or, you know, indie rock, and having a space where they can headline and be the feature act, you know. And that was really cool. Like Psychic Twin played one that was really cool, and Evil Tense was a cool band. Yeah, I mean, Evil Tense got to play a bunch, and Psychic Twin did too, but it would be really like strategic of like what bills you're on, you know. Also, those bands lent really well to my visuals, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of made that for myself, you know, kind of like, especially the second to the one at Mike and Molly's was kind of selfishly like, ooh, I'm going to book these shows so I can do visuals for these bands,
right.
You know? So, and now like there's a couple of bands like Dirty Feathers. I've done a lot of projection over the years for Dirty Feathers. They'll just be like 2 days before, hey, Archie, you want to come do this? Yeah, let's do it. You know?
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely certain crews of folks in Champaign-Urbana that are just like, just let's go, let's do it. You know, let's make it fun. And like, they're definitely one of them.
You also have gotten into making music videos too for people.
Yeah, that's actually more what I started doing. Well, what it was I was booking shows and throwing shows. Through being, you know, involved in everything, I'm meeting people in bands, and I've been known more as like in the DJ world and hip hop stuff, you know. I worked with people in bands. I went to show. I mean, I love all music, you know. So I started connecting with these bands, and I knew these bands, so I would be like, hey, I have a camera. Can I come and shoot your show, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started off doing a lot of live concert stuff. Later, I like tried to document the cover up every year. But yeah, I would just go like Headlights or Living Blue or Lorenzo Getz, like back then in like the mid 2000s. A lot of it was just me going, hey guys, you know, can I do this? Like, I don't need a bunch of money to do it. I just want to do it. And they're like, yeah, cool. I mean, they don't really say no to that, right?
Right.
And then music videos kind of came out of that same thing, you know. My first like produced music video like was Lorenzo Getz, Heavy. And I was like, hey, Larry, can I do a music video for your band? He's like, yeah, here's a song. We should do this song. And I wrote a treatment, I had storyboards and all of it. And like, we rented out Soma or used Soma. And it was right when Soma opened too. So it was like,
cool.
It's a cool bar. Yeah, it looks so cool in there. After that, I did a video for Megan Johns. And then, you know, like I was doing that. And then Ryan Groff asked me to do one for Elsinore. You know, people see you doing stuff and they're like, hey, you want to do something with me? And vice versa. I'll be like, hey, I like what you do. Like, you know, and I never like was like, oh, that's not my genre or like, that's not my thing. I actually, most of the, you know, being a person musically who I do hip hop and electronic music, and that's more what I do. Like a lot of the videos I've done are not hip hop. I've done very little hip hop videos, which is kind of funny. I like the collaboration, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's just storytelling and fun, you know. And also like what people want for hip hop videos end up being like super boring. I would do some concert stuff, but I kind of like didn't do video for a little chunk of time. Then I started getting into projections and kind of producing some art shows and that kind of stuff. There was a time when the DJ scene really came together, when dubstep was first like emerging in the States. And like, you know, as much as dubstep's become this like kind of a joke and kind of a thing, like it was really good, you know. It was really good for the scene and for the DJs, because it's just like the apex in Champaign-Urbana of like the popularity of it and just like the talent of DJs. It was also this like common ground between all the DJs, house DJs, hip hop DJs, drum and bass DJs, you know, techno DJs that all liked dubstep, you know. And then they were like, oh, we all come together, we were organized. That paired with hey, here's a new thing, you know. We were a little ahead of the curve for a town our size and where we are, you know. And I think, not to like, you know, toot our own horn, but we kind of were. And it was because we had DJs that were paying it. It wasn't like, oh, here's this new music, now I'm a DJ. You know, they were already DJs seeing all this music come out of the same places that they were looking for other music and liking it and being like, this is different, but it's cool, you know. And then everyone else started liking it.
I would never have made that connection. I still feel like Champaign-Urbana is one of those surprising places. Like,
absolutely.
How do we generate so much? Yeah.
I constantly say it's an anomaly. Like most of the things, a lot of the big, awesome things that I've seen happen here, like shouldn't have happened here, you know? I mean, in all logic of like the size of the town. I mean, even more so back in the day, all that stuff happened because college campuses is like where it's at, and like kids are partying and you want to go see a band, and like that's still there, but it's different. If we were just a town in the middle of the cornfields without a university, not a lot of this stuff would be happening, you know? And I think it's not just, oh, the U of I has money, but the U of I attracts intellectuals and talented musicians and performers and all of that. Some of them stay here, especially when it's like, oh, wow, I've had all this magic stuff with this really surprising, you know, community that I find all this value in, you know, and like, they stick around, and then that definitely helps because then it attracts other people, you know.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, I've had a few people on the show that are, you know, music students, and not necessarily that they're tired of doing the things that they've been doing as part of their, you know,
program.
Yeah, their program. Yeah. But they're just like, I just kind of want to take what I'm doing and put a rock edge to it. I want to put an experimental edge to it. I want to, you know, be part of this music scene that is interesting to me.
Right.
And it's like, it's this weird feedback loop that happens because, you know, those people get involved, and then other people are like, I want to do what they're doing. And then, you know, it's just like this weird.
Or like learn from them too, you know, like you see these people that are like, wow, you're really good. Oh yeah. Cause I have a degree in jazz performing. You know? Like,
right.
Oh
right.
yeah. You know, and you see bands like that. I mean, like the Iron Post is notorious, and now Rose Bowl is like, you go there and you just be like, what? These people are from here?
Yeah.
These people are amazing. The university kind of breeds that. But then, like, you know, the pairing of the towniness, you know, and that paired with it, it's just kind of like perfect storm sometimes, you know? And, you know, touching on the anomaly thing, you see these apexes, these things happen in Champaign-Urbana when things are organized, as, you know, venues are going and scenes are happening and people across scenes are talking to each other. I've seen these waves happen, you know, and when it's going, it's great, you know, and there's a lot of growth and people support each other, but there's also space for everything, you know. It's kind of awesome. It's definitely a town where you can't do everything, you know. There isn't maybe like massive support for every niche genre or anything, you know, or whatever, but if you really try, you can do it on some level, you know.
A local venue or a house venue, or even just what the heck, like Cranert deciding to do so, you know what I mean?
Right,
like we have all these like weird avenues.
I mean, I think we have the least amount of venues at this moment right now in Champaign-Urbana, which is probably one of the rough things right now. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, but still, even with it being low, there's still places to do stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
And not just like renting out the VFW or something, you know, like,
right.
Like that's a lot of towns. Like that's your like,
well, I'm looking forward to the day again, where if you just go down to, well, and Urbana seems like it's doing it right now, but I mean, like if more of those you know, there used to be a point at which you could go down to Champaign on a Friday or Saturday night, and you could just walk, you like
bounce around.
You're like, oh, let's see what's going on. You don't even know what's going on, but you could just poke your head in over at Mike and Molly's, and it'd be like, oh, crap, Withershins is playing here.
Right.
And then you'd walk over, and you know, you'd hear part of their set or whatever you wanted to hear, and then you'd head over to High Dive, and there'd be a DJ playing. So you'd just be like, I'll poke my head in.
Right. Yeah. There was times when there's so much going on, you had to make choices of like, oh wow, you know, without sounding like, oh, back in my day kind of guy. I try to tell people about that, as far as like, there was like the Velvet Elvis too at one point. It's like, okay, like that's like a loft house show downtown, along with every other bar doing DJs or bands. You know?
That place had, second only to Mike and Molly's, like the longest staircase, or at least it felt like it at the time, because usually by about the time I would make it over to Velvet Elvis, I had already enjoyed a few drinks, so it was just like, wow, that's so long.
This is a challenge. And which one? They did both the back and the front staircase. Yeah, because it was the top floor. Jesus, it was. Mabel's had stairs like that too. I always talk to bands that were around when Mabel's was around, and Mike and Molly's is similar. It's like, how those stairs just seem like a nightmare to load in, load out. Especially when you're talking about like hey, I had a few drinks and, and then I played and I had a few more and I got to load my gear out. Like,
that leads into like my final and favorite question of this section is, what makes a good music scene to you?
It's a good question. I've talked about this with people a bunch. I think definitely venues. We talked a little off mic earlier about venues that have people that are somewhat passionate. You kind of have to be passionate to run a music venue, Most people, maybe if you're in a city and you have like a concert place, you're not going to print money running a music video, especially in a town like Champaign. So it's like, you really got to be invested in like wanting to have the scene happen and make things happen. And part of that is good venues, but people that are booking out of town talent, There's a lot of local talent in Champaign-Urbana, but for a scene to kind of, and like, not to be like, well, they're not good enough, because that's not how it is. It's just the formula of having touring acts and having locals support them, however that works on the back end or whatever, but just bigger bands pulling people out to see local bands, that's really important. The connection and just, the vibrance of having touring talent coming through is important, And then, venues that are open and opportunities for people to play that aren't just like cliquey and like the same people getting booked all the time, Right. When I was speaking on a minute ago about scenes kind of intertwining, and meshing, like that's kind of important because support, anybody can go to any show. It's not like you have to like have a badge of what genre you represent. Like, oh yeah, I have my hip hop card. And that's when cool collaborations happen and, unique stuff happens. So one thing that does help a scene, and that kind of is lacking in Champaign, it has for a while, a centralized place where people get information about shows. There's no, like, if I asked you right now, like, hey, where do you go to look for shows in Champaign? You might give me 3 different answers.
Right.
But it would be really cool if it was one answer real quick,
Yeah.
Yeah, like one calendar or one place that's kind of like a place you could be like, what's going on this weekend?
I think there's a lot of people that are attempting to do that, but I don't get the sense that, it would need a huge team of people, right? To make that happen.
Or just a connection between all of them. And I'm not like shitting on anyone that's doing what they're doing now. I think the information's out there, but having a place that was a quicker answer. I hear so much in Champaign, like, oh man, if I'd known about that, I would probably check that out. How many times have you heard that, right? So I have this new website I'm doing, right?
Right. Harsh finds it.
Right. Yeah.
.com.org.edu.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This interview is just a pitch for my new website.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. All right, so welcome back. So, Harsh, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
This is a really hard question. It kind of is a challenging question. I should have took time a minute ago to think about this. Non-musical things. That's musical. I was going to say collaboration, right? But like...
Yeah. I mean, all these. I mean, it's supposed to just kind of slightly take you out of the realm of what we've been talking about, like right. Being all heavy, and then I just like kind of,
yeah,
something that
I would say nature, I guess. Nature is my favorite, well, video and photography, that counts, right? That's not music, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, light and filming nature a lot is really great. Video, playing with light, filming things, making things look cool. I think that might be well, and Progy's mix sauce. I mean, that's obvious.
You're gonna walk away with 2 extra containers of mix sauce to enjoy at your leisure.
Yes, I love it.
So I'm curious, there's wavelengths associated with light, and there's wavelengths associated with music, and I know that I'm not trying to recombine them, but I'm curious if you process the way that images and light and all those elements come together in the same way.
Similarities, yeah. And actually, I've been playing around with names for that, because they're both waves. I'm playing with the name waves. I don't know. There's something in there, but yeah, I mean, it's a little different as far as certain things, but they kind of are the same. You have feedback when, feedback on video is a little cooler than feedback. Well, I don't know. Feedback is important in a lot of music too. And it's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, not barky feedback, but like controlled shoegazy feedback.
Like intentional feedback is always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, especially in like recording sound and recording video. Because they say if you have like too much sound, if it's overwhelming, there's nothing you can do about it. Or if you don't have enough, you can boost things, but not keep your like a good tone, or same thing in light. It's too much light, you can dim it down, but and with technology there's some leeway there. There's definitely a lot of similarities. I think playing and dancing kind of with those similarities and how they kind of work similarly is pretty cool. I've always wanted to have some kind of camera and a light where someone could, like, where audio feedback and video feedback could be controlled by the same device, like in the same way. So when you're like, wah, wah, I don't know, I haven't figured that one out yet, but I think it'd be really cool to find some way to do that. It would be something like where you would have to have like a light and a camera. I don't know. Yeah, I'll work on. I'll let you know about the prototypes and stuff.
Don't give away any trade secrets here, right? But yeah, so you said nature. Is there a favorite place that you like to explore nature?
I haven't been a ton of places. I mean, Colorado is amazing. I think it's just, you can find beauty in nature everywhere, right? And it's just, you look for it. But I grew up in the Midwest, so when I go places that don't look like here, it can easily be, profound. It can be like, wow, and Colorado is definitely one of those places,
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, mountains. And then you get up in the mountains and you're like, whoa, this is a different world. And, honestly, you're doing video and photography. It makes it easy. Those places make it easy. It's just like, oh, thanks for, it's like a really good looking model, they make it easy.
Harsh, thank you for being on the show. And
yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
And talking about your song, The Truth, venues that I'd forgotten about long ago, and what makes a good community, and then your favorite non-musical things. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate being here. Thank you for listening to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. This is Matt Harsh reminding you that great music is out there. Go find it where you live. Thank you for listening. No, I was kidding.
That's a wrap.
Champagne is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio South Baker on the inside.
Oh yeah, I have my hip hop card.